ready to start. It was all set up before. It took me a little while to find something that's right here. Players take turns playing the round, starting with the Soviets. I couldn't tell who would first. It's also in the rule book. But anyway. So I spread out the Soviet cards and wanted to think about them a little bit. Because I kind of had the question of, well, what can you do with your cards in a war game if there's no war, right? Well, we've got some interesting choices. And remember, you've got this as your fixed tableau on the first turn. And in fact, your second turn, you're going to have 5 cards plus 3 of these that are left. So all of these are pretty good cards in the sense that there's no one-pointers here. So there's some disincentive to getting rid of cards. On the other hand, there are ones that might be appealing. For example, these guys playing one of these as an event to reduce the intervention roll for the next turn, or for this turn. There are perhaps cards that improve the intervention roll, I don't know, but at least canceling out any chance of the intervention roll getting a jump early might be worthwhile. How many spaces do I have for forces? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if that's right. I'm not sure it is. No, it should be obvious here. That is not right. Okay, yeah. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 strength points that I have to generate. Now I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 17. I could spend all my points to get my troops up to full strength. But that's probably not the best move. Now, for example, there's cards like this. Add 2 infantry units with a strength of 3. That's a pretty damn good card. That's 6 points of troop strength for a 3-point card. So I'm just going to play this because it seems like a good idea. But let's go over some of the others here. So I can increase the strength of 3 units by 1. That's worth more than the 2 points for the card. It's probably, at this point, worthwhile. I can't use it as an event once the piece is over. But this one burns. This one does not. So this is my best card, but also really unlikely that I'll play this for points at this point, and perhaps throughout the game, just because of the reinforcement capabilities for it. These two we talked about, they're the same. Finnish emigrant communists. Add 2 infantry with a strength of 1. It's hard to get additional units maybe, so that might be worthwhile, but that burns a 2-point card. Maybe I want it in the deck, maybe I don't. I don't know yet. 2 is probably about average, so who cares? Decrease the strength of 2 Finnish infantry units by 1. Well, that's something that's hard to do, so maybe that's cool, right? Makes it easier for me to gain ground if I weaken the Finns. As opposed to improving my own troops, it probably is a stronger effect. So that I might judge worth more than the 2 points for it. It doesn't burn the card. Underground communists, decrease the strength of 1 Finnish unit by 1 and increase the strength of a Soviet unit by 1. Again, that's probably about, a little better to play the event there at this point in the game. On the other hand, maybe I need to start moving some forces forward as well. So playing this one, this allows me to add 2 infantry units with strength 3. Well, I can't put them both here. But I don't know that it's terrible to have a unit in each of these. So I'm going to play this anyway. And grab myself 2 units on the front. Now I'll go over and look at the Finns. And I'm not going to spend this kind of time on every turn, on every card play by any chance. We're going to step away quite a bit from this. But, I think it's definitely worth analyzing, especially this first turn's cards, because, wow, they are always going to be this hand. Let's look at the Finnish starting deck. It's a little bit more varied. Okay, I got three 3-point units and 4 2-point units, and then a 1-point card. The 1-point card, unfortunately, isn't one I can burn. I can add an infantry unit with a strength of 1 and move 1 infantry unit. That might be useful. What's really interesting to me is these 3-point cards here. So, add 1 to all intervention rolls from now on. I'd love to play this, but maybe I can use the 3 points and then play this in the next deck. If I leave myself with only 3 cards, that works. So if I play all my events, I still end up not guaranteeing myself this card before the war breaks out. And the problem is, I definitely want to play this as an event. No problem there. This one, add an infantry with a strength of 1 and a ski unit with a strength of 1. Again, this would be a nice one to play for the 3 points. And sort of one of the things with these is, if these guys are left over, like if I don't get to use these right away, if I don't get to use these as events in 39, I've got a couple of 3-point cards in my deck that I can only use for the 3 points, but still, they're 3-point cards. This one, add 3 to the next intervention roll, can only be played during peace. I almost certainly do not want to do this one. I would much rather do this one with the +1 on every turn. Although there aren't that many turns, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Uh-oh. I kind of have to succeed every time to get that all the way up there. That doesn't look likely. So then maybe even this one's not all that valuable. Although if I can get the additional forces, that might make up for something. Basic acquisition, include Mannerheim lines readiness by 1 and add an infantry with a strength of 1. This looks like a really good idea to play for the event. Even, it's going to burn a 2-point card, but, it can only happen once. Increase 2 infantry strength by 1 and move an infantry unit. Okay, I definitely want to play this for the event, but it doesn't burn it. Add and move 1, I want to play this for it. Add 1 and increase another infantry by 1. This one, who knows, What are my points? Well, these are built. 1, 2. I only have 3 points to add to the board, so I want to add more units to the board. So I think I'm going to open up with this. I don't know where to put it. And increase another by 1. We'll boost this up. I'm not sure I really want my forces there. But whatever. It's close to the Mannerheim line. So it's appealing that way. And there's also maybe it's worth fighting for this. We'll see how things go to give me more time to build up the line. All right. Now I have to start doing, the thinking in the game, which is constantly assessing, hey, which cards do I want to play? What do I want to do for them? And honestly, it's not a lot of fun to watch. I'm going to try to come back with some narrative here and there. And hopefully we'll be able to get at least into the first war turn and play that through on this first video. Left out describing this card. This card is one, the other, the 1918 game also has similar cards to this. You place this card on the table in front of you, and it's going to add 1 to your defense roll when you're attacked. But then if you roll a 1 through 3, you lose the card, but on a 4 through 6, you get to keep using it again. It stays in front of you and may have another factor in the game. So this is something I almost certainly want to play, and since it's only a 2-point card, I think I'm going to play this for the event. I'm going to keep it up here as to long-standing events. and just get that down. For the Soviets, I used the 2 points from this. This is really a combat card. I activate 2 units with in one square. These units gain +1 to the attack roll. The reason that it's important to get this in the early deck is because now that becomes kind of a more randomized card than it would otherwise. It doesn't go away ever. But what it means is, after the 39 cards come, and whatever I get out of there comes up, I don't know whether or not I'm going to have that available in the next in the next period is basically the issue. And I think, always get all the cards for that turn, because they're always less than 8 after the first turn. And then you get a random selection. So you don't know, how when you're going to get this. You're going to get it periodically, because it does get reshuffled and comes out once per deck. But then we'll be back to the Soviets. There's the next couple of cards, just because I can only remember about 2 cards. One, I increased the strength of 3 units by 1. The Soviets have a bunch of units that want to increase. Then I played the Mannerheim line card. That's out of the game from now on. I go back here, I'm putting a subtraction on the intervention. That means no chance of intervention on this turn, unless something changes. And for the Finns, I took 3 strength points for this instead of the +3 intervention. Seeing that come out, if I knew the decks, might have made this, even more appealing. But I kind of just don't think that I'm going to go for the intervention this turn, because I got a penalty on it. And we're probably not playing too much for the public support, because I think this is going to be almost impossible to reach unless you really focus on it entirely. And that means that these guys will be, maybe a possibility, but how much are they worth? They're worth like 5 points of stuff. Of course, new units are valuable and everything, but I'd rather have 3 points of stuff now than, improve my chances at getting those 5 points of stuff. And we'll see what happens, in terms of what my draws are, whether or not we want to play that for an event later. Back to the Soviets. Problems with the Soviets. These 2 cards, which allow me to decrease Finnish units, I would really like to play them just before I'm going to attack. Obviously, right now, if I'm going to play them for the event, it probably doesn't make much difference, but I kind of would like to play them late in the turn. But on the other hand, this might be of value. This allows me to put 2 units on the board, but they go here and here, and I don't have room. They could both go in 1, but I don't have room for both of them. So I kind of have to move units to do something. Which means I think I'm going to play one of these. I'll take this one because it has the lesser effect on the Finns and gets me a strength point that, although I already have this front filled out, I do not have this front completely filled out with the 4 units that can go forward on it. So these 2 are filled, but I could fill out units and move them. So that's what I'm going to do there. Let's start going down the line. Now, I started with that Russian, so that's fine. But over here, increase 2 infantry units strength by 1 and move 1 infantry unit. We did that for the event. Oh, wait. Yeah. Over here, decrease the strength of the Finnish. We talked about that already. I started reducing the Mannerheim line some more. That brings me here, add an infantry with a strength of 1 and move an infantry unit. I'm shifting forces towards the front slowly, 1 box at a time. That's all you can do. Then over here, this was an interesting one. I could prevent an intervention from happening. Knowing the cards, I know that. Ideally, for competitive play, you would probably know these cards. For non-competitive play, like I'm kind of, looking at, hey, I don't know what the cards should do or whatever, I might look at that and say, I've already got them penalized, so, you know what, I'm going to play this for the points. It allowed me to move a tank army into place, clearing up room so that I have room to add my 2 additional units, which I think I want to do. It burns a 2-point card, but I haven't burned any cards yet. Well, no, I burned that one. Okay. And that brought me over here where he spent the 3 points to build up the Corellian Isthmus, and rather than going for the intervention cancellation, even though this was already out. So now we're on the last card, which is, do I want to add the 2 units or do I want to take 2 strength points? Well, I'm going to add 2 infantry units. This may not be wise, notably because maybe I can get tanks or something if I did this differently. And this is a starred card, so it goes away. And that puts me to the last of the Finnish card. Add an infantry with strength 1 and a ski of strength 1. This is a starred card. It's worth 3 points. I've built this front up completely. I could build 3 points of units and hope that I get this sucker, because I'm worried about the total number of units that I have on the board. Like, once units start getting destroyed, they're harder. You can't rebuild them. So building units might be really important. I'm torn because I got so many cards in this deck. I have not burned a lot of cards. I've only burned 1. No, I burned 2. I burned the Purge. Okay. But still, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. And I'm only going to get 3 of these. But I just can't give up a 3-point card. Not this early. So everything's full here. I rebuilt. Let's rebuild that for 1. And then 2, 3. Now, if I couldn't have filled out my units, I definitely would have taken the event. That puts us to the end of the first turn. Take a quick look. We're going to make an intervention roll. Hey. Should have some different dice. I'll put some more out. We want colored dice and everything. The intervention roll can't possibly succeed because of this card, which goes away. And now we each get our new deck and shuffled remainders from these decks. When I have a tiny deck of cards to shuffle, Gloomhaven had this issue. What I do is I shuffle them and then I roll dice to randomize them further, because I just don't trust my capability to shuffle something and not accidentally control how the deck's going to play. So let's take a look at what 3 new cards we get. Now, the Finns don't know this, no matter what state you're playing it in. I don't know if it matters too much. They're all 2-point cards. Common turn. I have the capability to burn that if I need to. Given that I have a lot of 3-point cards coming to me, that might be interesting. I have one to hit the Finns a little bit more. Now, what's a shame with this, I don't know if it's a shame or not. This is probably the card I want to play last, to hurt the Finns the most just before the war starts. And this one, well, this one's useful if I want to move 2 units because it's exactly equal to the value. The only nice thing about it is, again, it's the +1. But unfortunately, I got it already, which means I'm not going to have it on the first turn of the war, which sucks. But let's take a look at what some of my new cards are. Molotov Ribbentrop at an infantry strength 3 and an armored with strength 2. Whoa. I'm going to have to move some units if I'm going to play this, and this can only be played in the piece. If I'd known the deck beforehand, I might have planned for that. 2 infantry with strength 2. That's a pretty damn good card. So already it's looking like, geez, I really don't, I am going to need to move units here. Baltic bases, 2 infantry with strength 2. Can only be played as an event during the piece. It's not as strong as this one, yet they're both 3-point cards. So they're kind of similar, and one is clearly dominant. They both disappear if I play them. And an infantry with strength 3 and an armored with strength 1, that's pretty cool too. But again, this one's weaker than this one. So I've got 3 that'll let me add troops. I'm probably going to play one of these. Peace with Japan, increase the strength of 2 units by 1 and move 2 units. This can wait. It's a 4-point card though, and it allows me to move 2 units. It might be worth playing now, but it's not only able to be played in the peace, so it's kind of in a weird position. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I mean, this is worth 4 points. Yeah, so I really would like to get some units moving. This is clearly a good card to move units with. Let's take a look at what the Finnish draw is like. First of all, I got this, so I have another choice on this. Add an infantry with strength 1 and increase another infantry strength by 1. That is promising again because I kind of need to build units and it doesn't go away. Finnish Olympic success. This is the +3 to the intervention roll. We didn't play it last time. We got another shot at it. You know, maybe. I'm not sure. Increase the strength of 2 infantry by 1. Well, you know, great. I probably want to play it for that if I can, which is all the more reason that I want to add this. Move the intervention token 1 square to the right. So if I'm going to do this, that's appealing, but again, I'm burning a 3-point card. On the other hand, maybe I've got my strength about as high as it can go. I don't know. Add an infantry with strength 2, a ski with strength 1. Can only be played during the peace. Again, a 3-point card. I got to lose for that. However, if I start taking losses in pieces, you know, you have to make these strategic decisions without really knowing what the game's going to turn out like. And that may be the case even after multiple plays because you're not sure which cards your enemy's going to burn, what they're going to put themselves into. Here's another one. Fortifications Karelian. Increase Mannerheim's readiness by 1 and add an infantry unit with strength of 1. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of boning his tanks because he's got 2 tanks on here. Again, if I had known that, maybe I wouldn't be pushing the armor there because it's more iffy now. And add 2 infantry with strength of 2. But again, this is new units. I've got a lot of these 3-point cards that are new units coming into play. I don't remember exactly what I've got there. What did I burn? I knew what my mix was. I burned a 2-point card, which means I have, I think, a 1 and a lot of 3s. So maybe I can afford to build some more units, and I probably can't afford not to. Do I want to reveal the Mannheim card at this point or something else? I'm not really sure. I can build units at no cost with this, so I'm going to go with this to begin with. So I can't. I'm actually full up on strength. All right. Wow. Strengthen ski or 2 infantry. So with the armor, 3 points of armor hitting on 5s and 6s seems stronger than 4 points of infantry hitting on 6s. But what about 3 points of infantry hitting on 6s versus 2 points of skiers hitting on 5s and 6s? They can't be down here. I think I'm going to go with the ski unit, and I am going to burn this card because of that. So I get an infantry strength 2 and a ski of strength 1. I'll put the skier here. Not as concerned with this front. I really can't. I don't think that I'm going to get the interventions easily, so I'm going to back that up there. And we'll keep yammering on as we go. Let's look at the choices here. First of all, I did this for the event, added a couple of infantry to strength 2. I don't know if I mentioned that already. I think I may have. Increase the strength of 2 infantry units by 1. You know, for a 1-point card, that's really awesome. Heading over here, I added I used the 3-point card to move a couple of infantry forward, clearing out some space for my new units that I want to build. And I added a strength point somewhere. I don't remember where, but you know, we're trying to get the most robust attack that we possibly can. Right now, the Finns are not on the border. They're going to have to do something about that soon. One thing is, it's going to be very hard if they get pushed back. It's going to be very hard for them to gain ground. Now, in the old SPI Winter War, it was very difficult for the Soviets to maintain an attack out of anywhere except right in the Karelian Isthmus area. Anything up here, they had so much limitation in terms of how their supplies worked. It might have been possible to like devote your supplies up in one of the other sides. But it was, if I recall correctly, this was the only area you could reasonably get supply. Now, that may be because you had to bash through there, but your armies were significantly limited by the way the supply rules went, so that it was very difficult to operate anywhere else. And up here, therefore, the forces were just naturally less. This game doesn't impose that consideration. Maybe, you know, it would be possible for the Soviets to run a good supply line through the center of Finland, although there wasn't a lot of rail and road capability going through there. So I don't know how much you could really say, yeah, I'm moving 4 of these armies through there with no problem at full strength, right? It may just not have been physically possible to have that, but you know, there's an abstraction level here. I'm not sure what it would mean, what it would require for the Soviets to have better supply running through here where they don't have the rail net and the roads. Look at the next card choices. First, this 39, this was played for the event, added infantry and a tank. Got my extra tank in there, but that's not so hot because the Mannerheim line is increased and another unit shows up as well. That puts me over here. I played this one because I'm so full up. Yes, I have other choices available, but in this case, I wanted to play for the points and maybe a movement as well, because this looks pretty empty now. I strengthened some of my units. That puts me over here, and these guys played again for the event, getting rid of another big 3-point card. That's going to start, I mean, they're burning through these. That's going to start hurting, I think, their capacity to fight an attrition war. But on the other hand, they have to have enough units in the field, you know, to prevent a breakthrough. And the game actually does kind of cover those two things. If you don't have enough forces on a front, you're going to be in trouble. Now, I got to be careful and make sure I have enough points to move things forward. That means this one, I probably need to play for points. This one, probably for points. You know, I've got 2 intervention cards, 3 intervention cards. These would all be good cards to combine, but I'm in no position to fight the war right now, which makes me feel a little bit like, well, maybe I kind of boxed myself into a corner. But, you know, you got to make your choices, right? The Soviets played this, it just used the points, the 3 points, because I didn't want to burn the Peace with Japan card at this point. It's 1 extra point to burn that. It's a 3-point card. To me, that's a card I do not want to play right now. I want that to be, if I ever use it for the 4th point, you know, it's 2 increases of strength, 2 units moved. Well, and it actually says move 2 units, not activate, which I'm not sure that they're synonymous. I should look that up. Because all the other cards that have an event type thing say move. They don't say activate. And there's potentially a difference between the two. Finns played this card for moving forward. In fact, they played the next one for moving forward too. Russians played this one again, either to shift forces basically to the front or to increase, I think more to increase the strength to the front. Finns played again to move forces to the front line. They also cleared out of here. I don't see a reason to try to hold this. The Mannerheim line, I'm basically sacrificing a unit that I'd made strong. Now, then they played the decrease the 2 units, and this is exactly when I wanted that to happen, last card of the turn, and that ended up weakening. They weakened one of the units here and one of the units here, and the Finns responded by rebuilding those units, not taking the intervention card. And this is kind of interesting. It means that both sides have played to maintain, their power cards in hand. They've played to increase the size of the forces they have available, and they ignored the intervention table entirely this turn. And it does not increase. So now we've got a new deck of cards. The war is starting, and we should start seeing things, changing a little bit now as we actually have an invasion underway. I do have to look up that rule on move versus activate. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, like let's say I have 5 cards, I'm getting 3 cards back. I don't know if 5 is however many I get here. Looks like I only get 4, so I'm going to get one of my cards rebuilt out of this pile as well. So there's a little bit of variance coming in as to the cards that I've built up. And there's something kind of interesting to this. This has more of a sort of a deck and manipulation aspect to it than a lot of CDGs do. A lot of them, you're faced with kind of the, okay, great. There are cards I want to get rid of because they're low value, and maybe I want to play a crappy event and pass on something just to get that card out of my deck for the rest of the game. I don't feel like I'm given that choice ever. I feel like I'm given a choice between, okay, here's some events and decent cards that I may or may not want to burn, but it feels like the deck's flipping around enough, at least at this early stage in the game, that I have a lot of control over what I'm creating for the deck that I'm going into. It's almost like a deck building game. It's more of a deck, it's more than deck management in the classic CGG style, but I have so much influence on it that it feels more like a deck building game. There's no question that I can use a lot of my cards for reinforcements and points in that early stage of the game, especially for the Soviets. Of course, their cards are less valuable. The Finns kind of have to choose which of their 3-point events they want to use. And that basically comes to, there's 2 main paths you can go for. Build up your forces and get them prepared for the invasion, or set yourself up for an intervention. Now, you have to win every intervention to get to here, except we already saw there was one that would have moved it a box anyway. Of course, the fact that I lost the first intervention means that I'm not going to have that. There may be more cards in there that are like, just push the intervention forward. I've made my choice to go military. I think you want to choose one or the other of those paths. I don't think you want to go kind of midway, although maybe you do. I mean, maybe these pieces are worth enough that like a little bit of intervention is worthwhile, but I really get the feeling more you want to concentrate on getting that intervention automatic victory, or try to reduce the Soviet victory as much as possible. But remember, these are victory points, no matter what. And these are victory points. And so like, if you can't stop the Soviets here, you lose 2 victory points for that. Here and here, these are at zeros. So you had better get some interventions in there, some movements on the intervention chart, which maybe that +1 across the game more than makes up for things. Maybe I wanted to play it. I don't know, but I just felt like I was going to get hosed, and and my impression is that it's going to be real hard to retake land. Now, in Winter War, the SPI game, it's not really that hard for the Finns to retake stuff, especially up in the north here. As they start to tax the Soviets more, because they're able to raid with their skiers and all kind of stuff like that. It's not a much more complicated game. It's from the very early 70s. It's got more number crunch in it, though. As to the dice, the actual game, these have nothing to do with the game. These are just my dice, because this is a preview copy. But the actual game is going to come with 4 white dice, 4 red dice, which is probably not quite enough. It's enough for you to roll a couple of units. But yeah, I'm looking at, wow, my infantry are up to 8 here, and I got 6 tank points, and I'm going to have a lot of dice rolling for each side. Yeah, you might be looking at up to rolling up to 16 dice in one shot. So but if you have that, it's just 2 die rolls, and mechanically it might be a little painful, but certainly you can grab dice from something else. So let's go forward with the war, and I think we got enough time. Shit, we might have enough time to get through the whole game on here. It's not a long-looking game. So far, I'm enjoying. I looked up the question of movement, and the way movement's stated, a unit must be activated before it can be moved. I'm saying where cards say they move things, that doesn't mean they get to attack, which kind of makes sense. The Japanese piece doesn't necessarily mean that you fling a bunch of forces right into the front line. It seems to be more of a repositioning forward. I could see it either way. But I ran into a problem here. Not this one. Stalin's birthday. Can only be played as an event during peace. It's a December card. As far as I can tell from the rules, those turns are peace. December is not peace. However, the Soviets get the first action of the game. This could be their, okay, if you open the fight up with this and burn this card, you get to move 2 units in for an attack with a +1 to the attack roll. Now, I think that's what it means. I think what it means is it is the card that you open up the battle with. Well, this is not in the rules, but that if nobody's crossed the border yet in either direction, that you're still at peace. Again, it's not specified in here. If that's what's intended, it ought to be better specified. If that's not what's intended, this card is either useless or much more likely it's an error. Now, given that his birthday is December 18th, it does make sense that it would be the opening attack of the card, and you have the choice. Do you want this nice 3-point card to come around maybe 1 or 2 more times, certainly 1 more time, maybe twice more or whatever, or do you want 2 attacks with +1 to their attack rolls? Yeah, hard to tell. That could be very helpful in cracking the Mannerheim line, but you can't get there. You can only get this far in 1 card play. So you're at war once you move into there. It's not going to work there. So then it becomes, hey, do you want to try to crack here with that? And it looks promising. It looks real promising. Let's look at the other cards, though. This one's interesting. Activate all infantry units in 1 square. They all get +1 to the attack roll. However, all the units I think that you activated take an additional damage point. It says all units, which could be interpreted many different ways. I wish it would say all such activated units or all units involved in the combat, because it might be hurting Finns as well as Russians. I don't know. Activate 2 Finnish infantry units on the front line. They must attack Soviet units. The defending units get +2 to the defense roll. Well, obviously I can't play that right now because there is no front line. We're not in the same spaces. Activate up to 2 units in one square. These units gain +1 to the attack roll on this turn and add +1 to the next intervention roll. That's a painful way to burn a 2-point card, perhaps. But maybe it doesn't matter here because I'm so far behind on the intervention. I assume that maybe I could play this at this point. Two infantry units with a strength of 2. I have room for them, as long as I haven't invaded. But doing so might mean that I don't get to do the Stalin's birthday card. I don't know. Again, if the Stalin's birthday can be played as an event only during peace, and it can be played in December before I cross the lines, like I'm kind of saying, then I could play this instead. Of course, that opens up. The Finns could play some of their only at peace cards if I haven't crossed the border, which maybe I don't want to allow them. Increase the strength of 3 units by 1. Yeah, that's kind of nice, but, to burn myself a 2-point card, but probably not that interesting again. Decrease the strength of 1 Finnish infantry unit by 1, unless doing so would eliminate the unit and increase the strength of a Soviet unit by 1. That's always kind of a nice card, I think. And add 2 infantry units with a strength of 3, which I can just, boom, do when I like. So I can hold that until after I've made some movement forward. There are no reactive cards, except for ones that you've played beforehand. I like this. It means that you have to kind of signal any reaction you have, and everybody's aware of it, for good or bad. But I'm always kind of iffy about the hidden hole cards, mainly because I tend to forget about them. So, what about Stalin's birthday? Why not? We'll open up with that. And we're going to push into here and see what happens. Right? Because we're not really worried about the intervention, so making that crack doesn't seem too valuable. So getting here seems more valuable. So we push 2 in. And that's it. We've activated our pieces. However, I am attacking, which means the Finns have 3 infantry and 4 skiers. The red for the skiers. I'm not going to play this here. Although maybe it would make sense. Add +1 to defense rolls. We might be able to do a lot of damage. All right, we'll do it. Okay. Well, we crapped out with our skiers, but our infantry got 2 hits, and that has to come off of 2 different units because the strongest one is reduced each time. Let's see if I get to keep this on a 4 through 6. I do. I do not, so it's gone. Pity. Nice effect. It might have been really useful on the Mannheim line. Okay, but now the Ruskies get to go. And they have 6 dice, looking for 5s and 6s because of the +1. So I got 3 hits, and the first hit has to come off this. I'll take the second hit off that, and the third hit will be off a skier. And this card too is gone. And now I gotta look at the Finns cards, which I haven't even dealt yet. Oh boy, I don't know what to do with the Finns. All right, let's start looking. Add 2 to the intervention roll. I don't want to play this right now. I feel like there's vital cards to play right now, but I may want to play it this turn because it's only a 1-point card. And getting a victory point seems worth something. Activate all units in one. This can only be played in December. Activate all units in 1 square and gain +1 attack roll in this turn. Now, after this, it becomes a 1-point card. So I want to kill this thing. I definitely want to play this, but unfortunately, I could use it here to attack into there. That looks painful, but I could use it here. I have a lot of units there, but I'm kind of outnumbered. Of course, we'd be attacking simultaneously, and I do have 3 skiers, so I'd probably do a decent amount of damage. But I can wait a little bit on this, I hope. Activate all units in one Finnish square adjacent to a Soviet square. These units gain +1 to the attack roll. Between this and this, I could launch an attack into there. But again, there's a fair amount of units in there. However, it's a little closer to even, although I don't have the ski units, so I don't know. But I'm worried about this cracking. So I can wait on this, I think, a little longer. Move the intervention token 1 square to the right. Maybe, but it burns the card. And it's a 3-point card. And I haven't really been focusing on interventions, but again, it's a victory point, right? Civil Guard training, add some units, add some strength, maybe. Increase 2 infantry strength by 1 and move an infantry unit. This could be very potent. However, it doesn't fill where I really need the help right now. Add 1 infantry unit with a strength of 1, add a ski unit with a strength of 1 only during peace. Okay, so this is a 3-point card. I could use it to bolster my forces. That might be very appealing. Add an infantry with a strength of 1 and move an infantry only during peace. This is a crappy 1-point card that I'm stuck with. So I think I'm going to burn the 3-point card in this case, and I can't use it for the event. It's going to be continuously in my deck from now on. And I'm going to increase 1, 2, 3, and just bolster my strength in that space. With no attacks, because we didn't activate anything. And that puts us back over to the Soviets. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Things, the quick decisions that were made during peace, I don't feel like I can make those anymore. The decisions are getting tough enough that I kind of have to think about them. Full Mannheim line, though, that's gonna be tough to crack through. So I'm kind of tempted to just try to push here, especially since my tanks don't work there. They gave this up, though, and I should advance into there, and I should advance into there with force. So let's see what I choose to do there. I think I gotta swap batteries. In the first battles of the game, I played this for 3 points. I pulled 1 more unit in, activated these 2. Yeah, I could have reinforced or whatever. That adds up to a total of 10 dice. I'm going to roll those 10 dice first for the attacker, just so I can kind of show you how the combat works again, but also how I deal with the dicing. So here we go. And I only got 3 hits. What I'm going to do to record those 3 hits is I'm going to put that over here on the Finns. And now I look at how many hits the Finns get to do. And they get 4 of their red pieces, and it looks like 3 of their white pieces. And no bonuses over there. Oops. And it looks to me like we caused 2 hits to the reds. Now I believe the defender has to remove first. And that will be 1, 2, and 3. We're still there. And 2 hits to the reds. I can just take that both off 1 because that's the biggest. And now we go over to the Finns again. Off pulse, but the Finns built up their units here again. The Russians didn't fight this time. They moved another unit in and reinforced a little bit. So now we're actually setting up for this card. Again, if I knew what the decks were, I would say, hey, the Finns know what this is here and they know they're in danger of it. But I'd rather play the cards as a surprise type factor without either side knowing what the other side has. It's one of the advantages of a first time playing of a CDG. The way I'm playing it with the open hands doesn't really make sense, but And obviously, yes, they would not be open normally. You'd have them hidden as you would in a normal CGG. It's just easier for me to cope with them out in the open like this. We'll see what the Finns are going to do without that knowledge. Again, as a competitive game, you wouldn't be playing without that knowledge. You wouldn't pretty much know what the deck is. One thing that's missing from this, yeah, I'm sure would end up as a player aid eventually, just something you can download online, is a compendium of all the cards and their effects. That's a very useful thing that, even if you just have to print it out or whatever, for that kind of competitive play, so you can look and see, especially since they are such fixed decks, any kind of tournament play or something, you would definitely want to know what the available cards are. Before I go any further with the Finnish turn, I'm going to move my dice so I can figure it out what they want to do. Something dawned on me that probably if you're watching has already dawned on you, but kind of like, so I'm seeing the Soviets here outrunning their supply line, as it were, or whatever, outrunning their defensive back, reserves. So if this Soviet force is destroyed, there's a possibility for the Finns to move forward into a space, get a major breakthrough of some sort. This is something you don't see in, I can only think of one other game that has sort of a linear combat channels quite like this. Which is Churchill, and it's pretty much unidirectional. You're fighting your way down the chart. Now this may mostly seem that way. The Soviets are going to be gaining most of the ground, but it is possible this force can be destroyed and there's nothing here. It's also quite possible that this Finnish force, I haven't been able to get the reserves up into place. It's always hard to get your reserves into place in a war game if you have to expend efforts into it. Other games that are CGGs that have semi-linear situations, Mr. Madison's War comes to mind, because of the era that it's in, there isn't really the concept of the sort of continuous front that you could break through, and you'd have to damn well make sure that you've got reserves there. You might have to garrison some important locations along the way in such a game, but you don't have to, have sort of a continuous, a fallback position that your remnants of your army essentially are gathering at, even though in this game that's abstracted away. The units would just be destroyed if the enemy could break through. But it's just a thought there that you might be thinking, wow, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of opportunity for real maneuver type strategy and everything. But honestly, the big points are here, right? How much do you want to devote to the front line? How much to your reserve? How much to this? How much to that? And the effects of it come into play without getting into the minutia of that hex by hex or even point by point movement. It's showing it on a nice little couple sets of linear tracks. So the Finns played this, giving themselves another 1 point unit over here and strengthening this unit. Oh, but on the other side, the Soviets, and like I said, I got kind of out of sync. I'm doing the Finns first now, are going to, this was their plan. They're going to launch an attack with all these units. But it's going to be a bloody assault, and therefore the way I'm interpreting this is that all their activated units take an extra hit at the end of the attack. But I'm hoping to kind of demolish the Finns. On the other hand, I don't have a reserve. I've been highly unwise. I did more, I did 3 damage to the Finns, which isn't bad. They did 1, 2 to me, maybe. But then I took all these additional hits on units. So now I've taken something like 6 hits and have weakened myself tremendously. Unfortunately, I don't know if the Finns are strong enough to play their own counterattack at this point that they want to do without recovering. And if they recover, then the Soviets recover. And we don't get the effect that we really could have perhaps gotten off this. Maybe I would have been better off forcing the Finns to attack me first. I really want to win on this front because I'm afraid I can't break through the line here. I am still really tempted I've got two of these +1 combat cards here. This one I definitely want to play. If I activate all units in a Finnish square, that's this one. Adjacent to a Soviet square, that's that one. These units get +1 to the attack roll. I'd have 3 on 4, 5, or 6, 1 on 5 or 6. I'd be facing 7 dice on 6. I'll probably take 1 hit. I think between my 2 attacks I can do a lot of damage. So it's very, very tempting. And here's the problem. The only card I have that I can really reinforce myself with is this one. And that's a victory point. I don't really want to give that up. I probably should have played the one before that turned to 1 to the right. I just didn't think about it too hard. In terms of victory points, I thought about it in terms of the intervention track and automatic victory and this and everything. But that's not the only value to the intervention. There's also the world opinion of what's going on. So this would be an incredibly expensive. This is giving up a victory point to not play this card, just like the other one was. So I am going to launch this, and I get to keep this card. I'll come back with the results. Only too bloody-minded for my own good on both sides. Now it looks like there's a good chance for a breakthrough here. The Finns might have a hard time getting in there. Especially with the crappy cards they have. So I may be losing another victory point there due to my choice. Oops. Just reinforced a couple of units over here and launched an attack with the 2-strength unit. It got hurt, not killing the Finn. The Finns then spent their 1-point card to reinforce those ski units. And that one little unit is holding off, quite a lot of formations, if not a lot of combat strength. We spend a 2-point card just to reinforce. The Finns blow their December special combat card just to move into here with everybody. Did they need to move everybody in there? No, but it's activate all units in 1 square. So it's a way for me to get 3 units into here and back this up, and then I can start filtering units into there if I get lucky. I don't have a lot of combat capability right now, and maybe I end up spending this for the 3 points, just because I got problems. Some interesting stuff happening. The Russians tried to kill that unit. Basically, it was a swish on both sides. There's going to be a +1 to the next intervention roll because of that. I was able to activate 2 units at +1. I thought I could clear the space. I blow the big 3-point card to move these armies in, and I'm going to attack. So I'm going to have 7 dice to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dice. Do I really want to do this? I do. I'm outnumbered is the problem, but I've got this reserve unit. I can't move him in if I clear it. You do all your movement before you do any of your attacks, and I spent my units to move in there. But I really like the idea of trying to push the Russians out. 7 units isn't going to get me a victory. In which case I'm likely to take more losses that I can't recuperate. So I am not going to do the attack. I'm just going to pile the units in there and prevent the Ruskies from getting that victory point. Because I've got a +1 to the die roll here, this crappy card will probably get me +2 to the next intervention. I don't see using it for anything else unless some emergency arises. Which brings the Soviets to their question, do they want 2 more 3-point infantry somewhere? Well, the only place I can put it is way up here in the north, which doesn't seem like a wise choice. I want to get at least 1 unit in here, and I want to reinforce some stuff, and I want to invade here, and I don't really care about the northern front. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on replenishing these units and moving a good unit in here. So there's 1, 2, 3. Sorry. 2, 3. Higher strength units are good. The reason being, if I have a 2-point card or a card that only allows me to attack with 2 units for the event or whatever, that does something for me, you know. Whereas if I've got my strength spread out all over the place, it doesn't really help me. But it's those high strength units that take the first losses, so they're the ones that, you know, are going to be weakened more quickly. So if there's a counterattack, there's a problem. But we're going to play this for that. That gets a +3 to the intervention roll. I just don't see 1 point as being terribly valuable here. That wasn't terribly valuable either. And that puts us into January and the end of this video. The next one may finish up the game. We got through 3 turns in one video. If I speed up and don't go into as much detail on the combat or whatever, we may be able to maintain that pace. So far, the rest of the world doesn't give a shit about Finland. However, they're doing a pretty good job of holding off the Soviets. They haven't crossed over here. They're barely in here and getting their asses kicked. Right now, the total value is +1, +2 for the Finns. So that's pretty good. Everything else is... Oh, no. +1 for the Finns. We should be able to get some, so if we can hold the Soviets off without giving them ground beyond here, here, and here, this is looking not terrible yet. All right, up it goes.